Hello everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to explore the wonderful world of decoupage by using items from our crafting stash. In this video, we'll show you how to use those items to create stunning decoupage pieces that will add a personal touch to any space. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting. Let's get creative with decoupage. So I tend to collect a whole bunch of canvases. Whenever I see them at the dollar store and it's a different shape, color, size, I tend to pick them up and have them in my stash. So for this craft, we're going to start out with an 8x6 canvas. And what you see me doing here is I'm just taking a screwdriver and a pair of pliers, and I'm going to remove the canvas from the wood frame. Now that we have those taken apart, I'm going to start out with just the canvas piece. Next, I'm going to lay this canvas piece down on a paintable surface. I'm taking some painter's tape and I'm just going to tape that down to this piece of cardboard. And now that everything is secured and laid out, I'm grabbing some Mod Podge and I'm using the matte Mod Podge for this project. And we're just going to put a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of this canvas. Now let's go ahead and set that aside to dry, and I'm going to prep my napkin. I found these beautiful napkins at Home Goods a few months ago, and I had to get them. I just loved how they had like a decorative background in the back side of this napkin and then the flowers over the top of it. And I think it just gave it a whole bunch of dimension and it looked amazing. So we're starting out by taking a little piece of painter's tape, and I'm just going to remove the bottom 2 layers of the napkin to prep that. Now let's grab our canvas with the dried on Mod Podge, and we're just placing the napkin over the top and just trying to find out where we want the napkin to be placed on top of this canvas. And I wanted it to look like the flowers were kind of around the outside of what I'm going to put in the center here. So this is how I decided to lay out my napkin. Now I'm going to grab a piece of parchment paper and lay that over the top of the napkin, and using my iron here, I'm just going to iron that on just to make sure everything stays into place. And what the iron does is it warms up the Mod Podge that has dried, and it allows the napkin to adhere really nicely to the top of the canvas. And by using the iron, you have like no wrinkles. So this is just a really good way to do your Mod Podge so it's nice and flawless. Now let's go ahead and take this off of our piece of cardboard, and I'm just using a quick pair of scissors here and cutting any excess napkin off of the canvas. And just to make sure I don't make a big mess, I do put this back on top of that piece of cardboard, and I grab my Mod Podge and I'm just going to do a top coat over the top of the napkin to make sure that everything is all nice and sealed. I'll set that aside to dry, and we'll go ahead and grab that wood frame. With this wood frame, I'm just taking my antique wax and I'm going to stain the outside of the frame. Now, I had these rub-on transfers that I've had for at least a year, probably 2. And I'm going to grab this one, and I want to cut out the one that says, "Make it happen." So I want to put this sign up in my office just to give me motivation. I'm going to take this rub-on transfer, and I use a piece of a paint stick. So I just cut that to size. I'm just going to set that right on top. Next, I'll grab a popsicle stick, and I'm just going to rub this on until everything is adhered to that paint stick. There was a little bit of overhang from that rub-on transfer, so I just kind of rubbed that down around the corners just so you couldn't see the bare wood. Next, I grabbed my burnt umber from Apple Barrel, and I'm just going to take a little bit of paint here, and I'm going to paint that around the outside of the edge of this little paint stick, just to make sure it looks nice and polished before I attach this to my sign. While we have the paint out, I did tape down this little heart cutout that I had from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to paint that with the same burnt umber paint. Originally, I thought I was just going to dry brush it really quickly, and that didn't work out, so we just painted the whole entire heart. let's go ahead and put this all together. One of the things that I did notice after I was looking closer at the napkin, there was a little blue line, and it was not the whole way down on the napkin, but it was just a little bit, and it must have been maybe from printing the napkin or something like that. And so that is why I painted that heart a minute ago, is because I am going to use that heart to cover up that little spot, because I don't want to waste this beautiful napkin just because of that little imperfection. So I started out here by drawing a little line around the frame with my pencil so that I would know where I'm going to cut the canvas so that it will fit perfectly inside this frame. Once I'm satisfied with the canvas and the frame fitting together, I'm going to flip this over and I'll take that canvas off of the frame, and I'm going to use this Aleene's tacky glue. And this glue is great. If you don't have that, you could use hot glue or Elmer's glue or pretty much any glue that you have around the house. But this, I think, worked really well with the canvas and the wood. Once I have that all the way around the frame, we're going to just lay that canvas right back on top of the frame. Next, I grab my staple gun and I'm just going to add a few staples to make sure that everything stays in place. Now let's flip this over and decorate our sign here. And I'm grabbing the heart and making it happen. And at first I was going to do the heart with hot glue. And then I thought about it and I'm like, I don't want that hot glue to show through. So what I decided to do was I took that Aleene's tacky glue again. And I'm just going to put a little of it in a bowl. And I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm just going to paint that glue right over the top of the backside of the heart. Then once I've done that, I'm going to just place this over the top of the spot where that blue ink is on the napkin. And this covers that spot perfectly, and the glue here will dry clear, which is what I wanted because I didn't want all of those strings and things from the hot glue. And for the Make It Happen wood piece, I am going to use hot glue for this because you're not going to see that hot glue behind it because there's no holes in it. So I just did that really quickly and I placed that down underneath. And this sign is complete. And I just love how this sign turns out. I can't wait to display this in my office. This gem has been in my stash for quite some time. I love galvanized metal and I want to do something fun with this. So I'm taking my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster and I'm just going to paint a coat inside of the heart. And I'm not going to go all the way to the edge. I am only going to paint about a ½ inch away from the edge on here. And once that is dry, I will repeat for a second coat. This beautiful welcome napkin I found at HomeGoods and just had to get this. It's been in my stash for a while now and I wanted to use this with the heart. So what I'm going to do here is I'm taking some painter's tape and I'm just going to remove the back 2 layers of the napkin. Next I'm going to grab some water and a paintbrush and I'm just going to paint around the welcome with my paintbrush and water. And then I'll slightly tear the napkin just so that it has a nice rough edge. And I think this makes it look so much nicer when we're putting it on items. Just got that softer edge and rustic feel. This step is optional, but I was impatient and I used my heat dryer just to dry the edges so I could go on to my next step. So let's grab our Mod Podge and that heart. And I'm using matte Mod Podge for this, but you can use whatever you'd like. And I'm going to paint a coat of the Mod Podge over the top of that paint after I move that little string so it doesn't get in the way. And then we'll go ahead and just lightly set down this napkin on top. And I'm just making sure it's going to fit there. I probably should have done that before I did the Mod Podge, but it looks like it's going just fine here. And this way I know where to put the Mod Podge. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just going to lightly set that down, and I'm grabbing a piece of cling wrap, and I'll take that and I will press everything into place. And I did not get me pressing the cling wrap down on top of this napkin, but you just take a piece of cling wrap and you just tap it down to make sure all the wrinkles are out. Now, once you're done with that, you'll see me here taking a little bit of that Mod Podge just to make sure that the edges are laying down, because few of the spots I did not have enough Mod Podge down. So this will just allow everything to lay down flat. And once that is completely dry, I will do a coat of Mod Podge over the top just to seal the whole entire project in. Now, while that's drying, I'm going to get this lavender piece, and I found these at Dollar Tree, and they tend to have them usually every spring. And these are one of my favorite picks from the Dollar Tree. I'm not a huge fan of all of their picks, but this one is really nice. And what I'm trying to do here and show you is that the leaves on this pick were kind of scooched all the way down toward the bottom of the stem. And what I did was I pushed one of the sets of leaves up toward the lavender so that way I could cut a smaller piece. For this project, I'm only using 2 of the lavender stems. Now, I have this ribbon from Walmart, and I get them at Christmas time. I really like the quality of this ribbon. I tend to grab quite a few rolls right when the Christmas items come out. My Walmart tends to sell out of them pretty quickly, so I rarely am able to get this on clearance. But at $2.49 a roll, I am happy with that price because this ribbon I can use all year round. So for this bow, all I did was a double loop on either side, and then in the center, I attached it with about a half a piece of pipe cleaner, and I'm going to leave the tails of the pipe cleaner on there for later on. You'll see why. And we're going to dovetail the tails on the bow to make it look all pretty. Now for our next step here, I am going to take my lavender and kind of crisscross it to make it look like a swag. And I'm using some of my floral tape, and I'm just going to wrap that to make sure it stays into place. And I kind of have to twist that a little bit because I want it to be more of an X shape because we're going to put this at the top of our heart. And then I take that bow, and this is where you see me using that pipe cleaner. I'm able to just wrap that pipe cleaner around the center of our swag so that it all stays into place. Now, for my last step here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about maybe 1.5 inch, 2-inch piece of ribbon, and I end up folding this in thirds-ish. So I'm folding either ends on the side so you don't see that wire and you only see the pretty part of the bow. And then I take some hot glue and I wrap this around to the back side, and this will cover the pipe cleaner and just ensure that everything stays into place. And here's our beautiful little swag. I just love how this turns out. Next, I just take some hot glue, and on the top center of this heart, I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue and attach the swag. And this is just a simple little piece that you can put together, and it has that farmhouse rustic feel to it, but I think you could put this almost anywhere. You could put it on in the kitchen, on a tiered tray, hang it on a door. It just is very versatile. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If you'd like to comment, leave a comment below. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit that subscribe or like button. Thank you. So here's another great canvas decoupage that you can do. And I found this beautiful napkin on Amazon. So I will put a link to this napkin below. And what I'm going to do here is I'm starting out by just removing the bottom 2 layers. And that first layer was really easy to remove. But then the second one, I did have to use a piece of painter's tape to help pull that apart. Probably seen me do this before, but I'm just taking a little bit of water and I'm going to paint around one of the quadrants of this napkin. By painting with the water, this allows me to tear the napkin really easily. Do repeat this water method on the straight edges just to tear a tiny bit off to give the same rough edge. So I'm going to just do the same thing, but I'm going to just randomly pull apart this quadrant of the napkin, basically making it like a puzzle. Now let's go back to that canvas. For this canvas, I am using some sandstone paint, and this is Waverly chalk paint. And I'm just going to paint a nice frame around the outside of the canvas. This can be really rough, and you'll see why here in a minute. And now that that is all framed out, we're taking some painter's tape, and this is a 1-inch thick painter's tape roll, and I'm just going to frame out the painting. So if a little bit of that paint is still on the other side, don't worry about it. Just try to make this as straight as possible around the edges so your frame looks like it was made that way. Next, I'm just going to arrange those puzzle pieces from the napkin and try to come up with something that looks cool, but with the torn edges all throughout. Now I'm going to grab my super matte Mod Podge, and we're just going to do one piece at a time where I lift it up, I add the Mod Podge, and while it's still wet, I place the napkin down, and using a piece of cling wrap, I try to make sure that I pat everything down so that there is no wrinkles. And we're just going to keep repeating this step for all of the pieces. So while we have a moment, I want to tell you about this amazing playlist I'm a part of, Craft Your Stash, hosted by Tasha at Sunflower Tasha DIYs and Amy from Bella's Bargains. And I love this playlist because I have a huge stash of craft supplies, and this gives me an excuse to use what I already have for my video. There is an amazing playlist that I'm going to link in my description box below for all of the other crafters that are participating in this fun Craft Your Stash challenge. So please check them out and these hosts and let them know that I sent you, Lady Red Crafting, and give them some love. Thank you. As you can see, I'm spacing this out to try to fill the whole entire space with that smaller napkin and giving some little lines in between things. This didn't go exactly where I wanted it to go. So what I am going to do here is you can see that there's two kind of bigger gaps in there. And I'm going to take another quadrant from my napkin and I'm just going to cut some pieces out that I think could kind of match and just fill in those spots. So that's what you're seeing me do right now. Now, once we are satisfied with the pieces of napkin all over our canvas, I am going to go over this with some Mod Podge to seal everything in, and then I'm going to let this dry completely. Now, I am going to grab that sandstone again and just a paintbrush, and I'm taking that paintbrush and I'm just going to dry brush all of the white areas on this canvas. And then in my mind, I am thinking, oh my gosh, I framed this out. I have sandstone on the outside and now I have sandstone on the inside, and this just doesn't make sense because I wanted a frame. So once the sandstone dried, I decided that I wanted to try to match the purple in the flowers. And of course, there is not a perfect paint for that. So I took like a bunch of paint that I had. One was purple and the rest were other colors, and I mixed it up until I came up with a color. Now I'm going to go over everywhere I painted in sandstone with this purple color. And I just couldn't help myself, and I just did a lot of purple. So then I thought, this is a lot of purple and this is a little bit too much. So I grabbed my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and a sponge, and this sponge I did get at the Dollar Tree. And all I am going to do is just sponge a little bit of this plaster paint all over the whole entire thing. Let's go ahead and remove the blue painter's tape so we can see our nice crisp line. And I thought it needed a little more. So I grabbed one of my favorite trim type ribbons. This is a ribbon that I get at Walmart. I absolutely love this ribbon. It does not have any wire in it. I just made a very basic bow, and I am just doing a diagonal cut on the bow there. And I'm just going to add that little bit of hot glue to the canvas and the bow for the final touch. And here is a beautiful painting of this nice, cute lavender napkin. What do you guys think? Do you like how I did this? Would you have done anything different? I'd love to hear what you think. Please leave a comment below. So this wood piece is a newer piece in my stash. I did get this a few months ago. It was called a wood coaster. And a few weeks ago, I found these wood peg dolls at the Dollar Tree, and these are newer items. One of the things that I did notice on these is that some of them were different heights. So you got 2 smaller ones and 2 larger ones in each of the packages. The 2 smaller ones match identically, and the 2 larger ones are the same height, but they look a little bit different. So please be mindful of that when you're buying these packages. You may need to buy a few to get the combination that you want. For this project, I'm going to use 4 of the smaller pegs. And what I'm going to use to attach this is just a little bit of wood glue and some hot glue. I'm just going to position them as evenly as I can around the base of this coaster. I set this aside to dry for about 2 hours before I did anything else. Now, once everything was dry, I grabbed my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and a chip brush. I also grabbed a little spray bottle that I could spray some water with, and these come in a little 2-pack from the Dollar Tree. This has been really useful. I just sprayed down my piece with the water, and then I went over it with the brush to give it more of a lighter coat, and it would thin everything out. And this way I wasn't trying to mix anything up, and I wasn't putting too much water in. And if it got too wet, I could just dry it off with a paper towel. So this gave a nice stained look to my piece. Do flip this over and do the bottom side as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this beautiful napkin for this piece. I just love this napkin. And all we're going to do is we're going to unwrap it, flip it over, and pull the back 2 layers of the napkin off. You just want that top layer. Next, I'm just going to lay this over the top of my riser here, and I'm trying to decide what parts of the flowers that I want on top of the riser. And I just kind of move this around. This is completely up to you. You can use any napkin you like for something like this. It's just a lot of fun decoupaging on different things. Once we got our piece figured out that we want to cut out, I'm just going to roughly cut around the outside edge on here, and I want some overhang because you'll see what I'm going to do here in a little bit. You don't want to have it too small. It'd be better for it to be too big. Go ahead and set that napkin aside for a minute and grab some Mod Podge. I am going to use the matte Mod Podge, but you can use whatever Mod Podge you'd like. I just prefer more matte finish for something like this. And all I'm going to do is do a really nice light coat of Mod Podge over the top of this coaster. And I'm just doing the inside portion of the circle. Now let's go ahead, and while this is still wet, we'll grab our napkin and position it on top. And once you lay that down, I'm going to use a piece of cling wrap, and I'm going to just smush that down and just pat out any of the wrinkles. Then go ahead and just set this aside to dry for a little bit. Once everything is dry, I'm going to take the same Mod Podge and I'm going to just do a sealing coat on the inside circle only. We do not want to put any of that Mod Podge on the excess paper. Now, once your Mod Podge has completely dried, I am taking my zip sander and I am just going to sand in a downward motion and sand all of that excess paper off of the napkin. If you don't have a zip sander, an emery board or a sanding block or piece of sandpaper will do the same thing. Just leave this alone, but I did flip this over and I grabbed some of this folk art flat paint, and I'm really loving this flat paint. If you're a matte person or don't like a lot of shine, these paints are amazing. I am using the color Crushed Stone. It's kind of a grayish brown, light brown color. It looks amazing. It's a very great neutral color. And I'm just going to paint all of the pegs this color. Now, after doing this, I could have painted these pegs before I glued everything together, but I did not. But this works just fine, so I just took a small paintbrush and I painted these to look beautiful. Now here's our final piece. I love how this turns out. This is just so rustic but bright and cheery. Can't wait to display this. And there you have it. 4 beautiful flower decoupage projects. I hope you enjoyed these crafts today as much as I did. And if you're looking for some more fun and creative decoupage ideas, be sure to check out this next video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, craft more, stress less.